Jason Thor Hall, aka Pirate Software, has once again decided to make himself the lolcow of the internet by crashing out over something once again. Now, the specific thing that he crashed out over at this time was in relation to Ashes of Creation. Ashes of Creation was a game that he kind of shilled for a lot, and there was a bunch of shady stuff that happened. The game ended up shutting down very recently. He had a little bit of a crash out and decided to kind of directly lie on his stream and put out a video directly lying about some of the stuff that happened there. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about that here because I already did a video of that on my main channel, but I did kind of just want to talk about a lot of the stuff that he's done in the past. Some of it, like, I have a direct connection to, but just a lot of the crazy stuff he's done in the past and how he's managed to just over the last year or so completely destroy his reputation online and completely destroy a lot of the public goodwill that people have given him online, and some of the causes of that, and just kind of my thoughts on it. This isn't going to be like on my main channel how I have, try to have evidence for every little thing. A lot of this is going to be opinion based, and it's going to be just kind of talking about some of the stuff that he's done, some of the stuff he's done for me. Some of it I will be dropping evidence for. Some of it I'll be referencing a video I've done in the past where I dropped evidence for it. But let's start with this. Pirate Software is a massive hypocrite in so many ways. And like, if you watch me in stream or you've seen some of my other content, then you know, like, one of the things I complain about the most is I hate hypocrites. More than almost anything, I hate hypocrites. I believe in saying what you mean, meaning what you say, telling the truth, not lying even when the truth is inconvenient for you. And I have more respect for someone that is going to tell the truth when it's inconvenient for them and stick by the things they say they believe in, even when it's inconvenient for them, than someone that believes everything I believe, but will, counter those beliefs when it is convenient for them, or will not follow those beliefs when it's convenient for them. So let's start with the first thing. I'm going to be talking a little bit of the Ashes Creation drama just because that's part of this. But one of the things with the Ashes of Creation drama in the video that he put out about it was he started kind of referring to it as a scam and saying that it was a bit of a scam because there is a little bit of like, okay, they seem to have pulled some shady stuff, essentially. In their Kickstarter, they said that, hey, anyone that, if you supported this game, if you paid into the Kickstarter and we don't end up doing a Steam launch, we will refund all your money. We'll refund your money if we never end up doing a Steam launch. Then they do a Steam launch in December and shut down like at the very end of January, beginning of February. I can't remember if it was like January 31st or February 1st. I think it was like January 31st that they made the announcement. And that seems to be maybe a way to get around the fact that they don't want to have to refund all that money because they don't have it. They spent that money. That money's gone. You're never going to see it again. The reason why him complaining about this to me is a little bit hypocritical, and this is one of the smaller complaints almost, is the fact that Heartbound, the game that he's been working on, arrived on early access in 2018. It arrived on early access on Steam in like 2018. Hold on, let me pop up Steam real quick to get the exact date. Yeah, it arrived on Steam on December 24th of 2018. It cost $10 on Steam, and it is still in early access. It is still in early access. Based on some research I did, it sold like 133,000 copies, which would equate to, I think Steam takes like 30 or 40%. So he made roughly $1 million off of this. He made roughly $1 million off of selling Heartbound, and the game is not finished yet. It is still not finished yet. It has been in production for 2018. It is no better really than like an RPG Maker game, it seems like, just from the looks of it. I haven't played it yet. I've seen some plays of it. I've seen some stuff of it, but it seems like no better than an RPG Maker game, and he still hasn't finished it after it'll be 7 years, 8 years at the end of this year. And more specifically, why that's a little bit of a scam in my mind, why it comes off as a little bit scammy in my mind, the way he went about that, is because a lot of games enter early access and they don't finish for a very, very long time. But the game, as it stands right now, according to like Time to Beat and a bunch of other like references of how long it takes to beat that game, and anecdotal accounts I've seen from people of how long it takes to beat that game, is it takes 2.5 hours to beat that game. The amount of time you can play a game before Steam will refund you for it is 2 hours. So it takes just long enough to beat that game that even if you're a little bit faster than average, you would not be able to refund the game. And that, when I first heard that a while ago, I was like, okay, that's just coincidental. But the more I see from Pirate Software, the more that seems like intentional. It seems really, really intentional. And to kind of dive into the Heartbound situation, along with like a little bit more of why that tunes into a bit of hypocrisy in my mind, or tangential to it, is the fact that he hosts regular game jams. This man hosts regular game jams where he participates in voting and ranking people's games that they submit to him and they play and whatnot. And these game jams take place over a very short period of time. And countless people that participate in these game jams can finish more complete games than this man does in a much shorter period of time. But he is taking money for a game that doesn't seem anywhere near completion. And it's like, I would even argue that he doesn't need the funding for it because he makes enough money, or at least he was. Like now his numbers are a lot lower, but still decent. He makes enough money. I think the last time I checked his website, his team is 4 people. He makes enough money that he could fund the continued production of this game just off of Steam and still have plenty of money for himself. Just off, or not off of Steam, just off of Twitch and the money he makes from Twitch and from donations and everything, and still have it for himself. So it's not like, oh, that's an early access that we're doing to help fund the rest of the game, to fund the rest of the production of the game. It seems more and more like this was just like, oh, this is how I'm going to make money. Also, the fact that, again, related to game creation and whatnot, the fact that he frequently, like, I've seen plenty of stuff of him critiquing other game devs, critiquing other people's games. The fact that he hosts these game jams that are in a way critiquing other people's game development skills, other people's ability to create a game, but has no actual game development experience aside from the one game that he kind of created himself that isn't done and is still in early access. And I've seen other people critique it and say, yeah, the code is kind of slop, or the code isn't that great. Now, I have some coding experience. I don't have game dev experience. I don't have nearly enough to judge other people's codes, but Pirate seems to think that he does. Now, you might be confused by the fact that I just said he has no game dev experience, because he has previously stated that he works, and he consistently states that he has worked at Blizzard and at Amazon Game Studios. And a lot of times when he says that, he kind of leaves it there. And a lot of the implication that he gave, at least for a while, it really seemed like the direct implication that he was giving was intentionally, like, not misrepresenting, but misleading what he actually did. Because when he worked at Blizzard, he, oh my God, I'm in the wrong form. When he worked at Blizzard, he didn't work as a game dev. He didn't work in development. He worked in QA, in quality assurance, and making sure that, you know, things were working properly, but he wasn't writing the code for the game, so he wasn't getting game dev experience. And then he will talk about, oh yeah, then I moved on, I took my experience at Blizzard and moved on to Amazon Game Studios, and kind of just leaves it there most of the time, where he's just like, yeah, I worked at Amazon Game Studios, which again gives the implication that he worked in game development, especially since he's positing himself right now as a game dev and a streamer, but as a game dev. He didn't work in game development at Amazon Game Studios. He worked in automation. He took his QA experience and worked in automation. So there's two things that he really likes to mention, implying that he worked in game development and doesn't actually work in game development, to give himself almost this seeming level of like extra credibility in the things that he's saying and the things that he's doing. And that to me is just like, it's also a thing that he does a lot. He has a lot of different instances of this where he says things in such a way that are designed. He says things in a way that are clickbait almost, that follow the same kind of mentality as like a clickbait title or a clickbait thumbnail does, where it's not technically wrong, it's not technically a lie, but the way you are meant to interpret it is not the truth. The way that you are meant to interpret the thing that is being said is not the truth, and that is really kind of shady, especially when you're positing yourself as an expert and trying to use that fake credibility to judge other people and to critique other people. And that goes into a lot more. That's kind of just indicative of the way that he talks about a lot of things, the way that he handles a lot of issues, including a lot of the drama and a lot of the way he addresses drama. That centers around him. He will say things that are not technically untrue, but are meant to be interpreted in a way that is not true. But then he could go back and say, and it's a tactic, because then you can go back and say, well, like, no, you misunderstood this. And I know, like, I get on my main channel, get accused of that a little bit because some of my titles and thumbnails are a little bit clickbaity, and sometimes I'll admit that is a little intentional. That is a little intentional for the title to be clickbaity and the thumbnail to be clickbaity a little bit. Like, it's true, but like you might interpret it in like 7 different ways, and that will draw you in. But the purpose of that is that when you come watch the video, you'll get the truth. You'll get the actual information watching the video, because when I do the videos, I drop all the receipts, I drop all the information, I try to be very, very clear about what I'm saying, and when I'm not clear, I release a pin post or a short or something that tries to clarify what was said and what was unclear, because ultimately, my goal is for everyone to come out of my videos more knowledgeable and with more of the truth than less of it. And I'll get a little bit more into the way he misrepresents things a little bit later, because I wanted to dive a little bit more into kind of the hypocrisy of him a little bit here, and that will tie in a little bit more. But one of the last things I kind of want to talk about is I remember seeing like videos where he was talking about people using like a lolcow mentality to like how right now, especially recently, they're treating him kind of like a lolcow, where they're using him for just like free content kind of thing. And complains about that, and that it was kind of gross, but it's to be expected, and blah, blah, blah. And I find that a little bit funny and a little bit hypocritical, because of like in 2019, he got a little bit more popularity by going after. Now, he didn't, from everything I saw, he didn't really explode until like 2023. He didn't really get super popular until like 2022, 2023. But he got a little bit more popularity from going after MatPat of the Game Theorists. And why did he go after MatPat of the Game Theorist, you say? Well, MatPat played his game on stream. He played Heartbound on stream, and I guess the thumbnail for the stream gave a little bit of an implication that it was Undertale clone. It was an Undertale ripoff kind of thing, which I haven't played Heartbound, and I've only watched people play Undertale, so I can't really talk to how similar it is to Undertale. But it's saying that something's an Undertale ripoff there's probably a lot of games that can kind of meet that thing. Once Undertale, like, in a way, created a genre, so a lot of games will be like that. And he complained about that, and complained about the fact that there was that, and that the game was not linked, which is an almost valid complaint, but I'll get into a little bit more why that is also hypocritical in and of itself, complaining about not giving credit to something. But he complained that the game was not linked. The thumbnail was, misleading and whatnot. And here's what I'll go on and say. Here's what he said on Twitter. I'll just say that, show that. He said, "Hey, at MatPatGT, I'm pretty disappointed here, and so is our community. Your recent GT Live came across as an Undertale clickbait mashup instead of being about Heartbound. You never linked our game and got our studio name wrong as well." Now, I'll go into a little bit more of that. MatPat responded, I'll just say, "I'm sorry to hear you're disappointed in our recent playthrough of Heartbound, but what you see as disrespectful, I would argue is the opposite. Let me explain. First, I don't review the thumbnails, tags, descriptions, etc. prior to live streams going up anymore. That's handled by 2 members of our team. However, I train them, so the decisions are on me." So he's taking accountability. That said, our goal is to make live streams as searchable as possible, and for games with limited searchability, that's important as it gets them their audience and the attention they deserve. It's the same rationale behind our Deltarune video being branded as Undertale 2. That also makes sense. That it's kind of similar to me when it's wild when like music companies will take down AMVs, or they'll take down, like, companies will try to take down like compilation videos or shorts that like show up a video, because I have discovered more music and more shows from watching shorts or from watching AMVs or from watching content related to them that has helped me start watching that show more and essentially giving money to the company that made the show more. So it's free advertisement. And yes, MatPat didn't link it, but when you say the name of the game, it's not like it's an unsearchable thing. You can go on Steam and look up Heartbound and you'll see Heartbound. So it's kind of a mute point. Yeah, it would have been cool for him to add the link, sure. But anyone that's actually probably going to play the game can just look up the game. Also, this post was in 2019. It was still in early access, and now it's 2026, and it's still in early access. So your game's still unfinished. So probably good that MatPat didn't drive more audience to you. If anything, he should be applying right now that he should be apologizing right now. I try to say apologizing and replying at the same time. He should be replying right now that he feels sorry that he drove more people to Pirate Software by ever covering the video to begin with. He then goes on, your game is great, and by relating it to something similar that our audience already knows and enjoys, we're hoping to introduce them to it when they might not have checked it out. If left with zero context, that's a rationale. I hope it makes sense. That also makes sense. There are times that if you're trying to do content on something that isn't popular, that's not going to have a lot of people looking at it, you need to kind of relate it to something that people are interested in. That way they will watch it. That's what he did. He drove more audience to this thing. Regarding this, we don't tend to link back to the games we're playing. That's not intentional. Slide on you. It's just rarely something we do for games that aren't fan made or free. We'll talk about having more standard policy around that. Lastly, I'm sorry I got your name wrong. Steph had called out the tweet earlier in the stream, but by the end I had forgotten the second word. My apologies for misspeaking. Hopefully that helps some clear things up again. Again, no disrespect was meant. I think that's fine. But the big point of that is that he gets mad at lolcows. He gets mad at people making lolcow stuff. Making fun of him and gets upset and says, oh, it's cheap and blah, 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 and whatever, and that it's just people trying to ride content. But he literally kind of did the same thing with a little bit more basis behind him, I'll say, to be upset about that, but not really because, again, it was free advertising, and he was essentially just complaining about free advertising. And to kind of tangent on that, to have more direct content to that, I put out another video on this. I put out a video a while ago on this specific thing related to Pirate Software. If you want to watch that, I'll link it in an iCard or something. But him complaining about that and not giving credit to someone and not linking to someone and not discussing someone more directly is also a little bit wild and hypocritical to me in a kind of tangential way, because if you are not aware, early last year, I started a change.org petition that ended up leading to a lot more stuff. But the change.org petition initially was about trying to stop patents in video games. And it was specifically spurred on by the Nintendo Power World lawsuit. So I started a change.org petition the goal was to try to get the USPTO to change the way they handle video game patents. And patents related to video game stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm trying to find more solid ways to handle this, but at least if we get this taken off, at least we'll get some more eyes on it, get some more content creators talking about it, maybe get some traction in the actual government and cause change. I reached out to him on stream. I put in a TTS on stream. I show that TTS in the original video I did on it. TTS on stream, saying, hey, would you be interested in supporting my change.org petition? He said, yes, reach out to me on Discord, put in a mod ticket on Discord, and I'll get back to you. I'd love to support that. I think that's a big deal. I put that in on like May 13th, I think. I'll pop the screenshots up on screen. I put that on like May 13th. I did not get a reply from him until I think like July 2nd. And the reply from him, because in May, the Stop Killing Games drama wasn't started. He had previously talked about it, but that was kind of dead. The Stop Killing Games drama renewing hadn't really started yet. When he finally replied to me, he said, hey, I don't think I should put my name behind this because right now I'm getting a lot of hate online. And I kind of understood that. I got that as like, he's like, okay, I don't want to put my name behind this because it might bring more negative attention to it because of the way that I'm being talked about right now. But then the next day, he puts out a video entitled Nintendo, where he is talking about the problem with patenting video game mechanics and why patenting video game mechanics is bad and why you shouldn't do it. And at no point in that video does he ever discuss the change.org petition, because he could have just said, yeah, I found this change.org petition and not mention that I reached out to him and not mention that like I was wanting to work with him on it and blah, blah, blah. but said, hey, I found this change.org petition, and there's this thing that's trying to make change. You should go sign it, and et cetera, et cetera. And that would have been good support. He could have linked to the fact that I did a lot of content on that. I was doing a lot of content discussing discussing the Power World patents and the Nintendo patents and blah, 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 and all that drama, and potentially maybe helped out a small creator. I wouldn't expect that, but I would at least hope that he would link to the change.org petition so that could grow, so that can get some more traction. But no, he didn't. He didn't reference any of that at all. He just put out a video discussing the Nintendo patents, discussing why it's an issue, and like a short video, like 11 minutes, and got like 370,000 views on it last time I checked. I checked earlier today. 370,000 views on it, which equates to, if his ad rev is similar to mine, he made about $1,000 off of that. He made roughly $1,000 off of that. I make around $3 per 1,000 views on my main channel. So he made $1,000 off of it, didn't link back to anything that I was doing, didn't link back to the change.org petition, didn't give any credit, whatnot. But the fact that it came out the day after he said, hey, I'm not gonna fall through on this, or I'm not gonna like give my name behind this, but he did sign the petition at the very least, is really suspicious. And it really, really shows that like he knew what was happening. He knew and even if it was his editors, his team knew what was happening and what was going on, and still chose to not give credit to it. And that's going to tie into again, it goes into a little bit of the hypocrisy and the misrepresenting facts and everything else. And if you want to get more into the misrepresenting facts, I'll link the video I did on the main channel about the Ashes of Creation drama at the end. But if there's one thing that Pirate Software seems to hate, it is evidence. He really loves showing very small snippets of evidence that make him look good, but doesn't seem to ever want to show the entire story, and then uses the fact that he hasn't showed the entire story to talk in a very creative way to misrepresent the facts. And how it relates to this in particular is I have put in 3 tickets in the Pirate server Discord, Pirate Software Discord server. I put in 3 tickets. 2 of them were just saying like, hey, there's this guy that came into my Discord server, started doing a lot of spam to advertise something or link or shady links or whatever. The only shared server we have is your link, is your server. So I think he came from your server, kind of thing. Each time I put in one of those tickets, the ticket was closed through their ticketing thing called Mimir, MIMIR, through their ticketing thing, and I got a chat log sent to me in a message. I got a chat log sent to me in a message that showed the entire conversation of that ticket. That only happens if you close the ticket the proper way. I did not get that chat log from our conversation about the change.org petition and about my goals to stop patent trolling with that. But that ticket is gone. That ticket is no longer in the server, because they chose, whether it was Pirate directly or his team, chose instead to delete the ticket so that I would not get a chat log, because he wanted, in my mind, what that reads as is he wanted to hide the evidence that this was a conversation that was had, that this was a thing that was had, and that was shady as hell. Altogether, him not wanting to support the change.org petition, this is something I don't think came through well in my original video on it, him not wanting to put his name behind the change.org petition, I understood that 100%. At that point, I was almost like, I don't know if I want him behind this change.org petition. But the things that bothered me about that were, one, the fact that he told me to message him. He directly told me to message him, and it took a month and a half for him to reply. And because that's just kind of rude. That's just a general rude, but okay, whatever. The fact that he put out his own video about it without linking to me, because that's just kind of like, okay, now you're taking this thing that I was doing, and you have an opportunity to support something that you say you believe in, but now you're refusing to. And then the really sticker for it was the shadiness of the fact that he deleted the ticket rather than close it. That way I wouldn't have the chat log, because that really makes everything else that happened there seem more malicious. Now, also with the Ashes of Creation drama, again, if you want to hear more about that, watch that video. But there was a lot of, he showed one screenshot of a conversation he had with the chat or with the Ashes Creation people that really misrepresented the conversation that was had there, really misrepresented what was said. He put out a video. He went on a stream and then had a video put out that was part of that stream, that was from that stream, where he tried to imply that there was a lot worse going on there. He tried to imply that the lack of moderation was a lot worse and that the Ashes Creation people were willingly ignoring a lot worse situations, when the actual conversation would show that's not more. But if he showed the full conversation, then it would prove that he was misrepresenting that. And that's why he didn't do it, I think. But then, the DMs got dropped and you found out about that. So there's this level of he does this thing where he only shows the evidence that's favorable to him, which I think is shady in general. And then he talks about things in such a way that he's not technically lying, but the word choices he uses, the way he structures his sentences, the way he structures what he's talking about, leads you to interpret in a way that is most favorable to him and most detrimental to whoever he's going against. But the way that you would interpret it is not accurate, is not the truth. But then he can go back and say, oh, well, when I said this, I said this, I said this. And that's what I meant. That way he can say, oh, technically I didn't lie and blah, blah, blah. Yet within those DMs that were leaked, he tried to accuse the one person that, ended up leaking the DMs of misrepresenting the facts, which was ended up being like really, really, really ironic considering that he was incredibly misrepresenting the facts, and leads me to wonder, like, how much of him saying these things is like actual legitimate diagnosable narcissism because his mind isn't capable of wrapping it around the fact that he was wrong and that he is misrepresenting and he's the one that's actually in the wrong here. How much of it is just malicious lying because he doesn't want to look wrong, and he wants to posit himself as really, really, smart and doing everything properly. And how much of it is just stupidity? Because it's probably a little bit of all three. There's probably a little bit of just stupid, narcissistic, and intentional lying. But it's that tactic of talking about, and also the tactic that happens a lot with people like this, where when they are questioned on something, they start talking around it. So they take the question, it's what a lot of politicians do. They take the question and they twist it, and they essentially start talking about something else that is favorable to them or diverts from that, and then change the discussion into that. But they do it in a way that's organic enough that you don't quite realize it's happening at first, or that they can say, oh, sorry, I interpreted the question this way. That's why I was talking about that, because they don't want to address the thing that would make them wrong or a liar. And it's, again, with the, I talked about it in the main video, but with the Ashes of Creation drama, he claims that there are all these complaints and stuff that were put in that were just directly ignored, but he only shows one screenshot. He only shows one screenshot, does not show the screenshot where those complaints were put in, and clearly those screenshots existed because he took them. He took at least one of them, and two, the fact that the DMs were able to be leaked through screenshots means that there were conversations that happened. He could have gone back. He could have gotten those conversations. He could have screenshotted them, showed the full story. He chose not to. And even in the DMs that got leaked, some of the more egregious complaints that he put in weren't really there. One of them was kind of there, but a little bit hidden. And one of them was just him talking in general and not about a specific problem. And again, on that like lack of evidence thing, I don't want to talk too much about the whole was he swatted thing or whatnot, or like opine too much on it in general. But in the conversation he had with that person, he claims that it happened 6 times over the course of a year. It happened 6 times over the last year, and that there are police reports for each one of them. And he's talked several times about being swatted and about all this different stuff. But if there are police reports, just like a lot of people don't believe you, dude. A lot of people don't believe this, and you're trying to get all this sympathy for being swatted. And if you were swatted, yeah, that's really fucked up. Don't do that. You can get someone killed because you don't like them online. That's stupid. But drop the receipts, man. If there are police reports, then you can get that information, you can show it, you can prove that you're not lying about this. But if there's one thing he hates, it's evidence. So my immediate assumption has to be that I don't think that it happened, or I don't think it happened as often as he said it did, or that it was as aggressive as he said it was, or any of that, because he's not willing to drop the evidence. And he, by his own admission, said that the evidence is there. If there's a police report, the evidence is there. He could do that. He could show that evidence, but he doesn't want to. But he definitely wants the sympathy from it. But at this point, he needs to realize that a lot of people just don't believe him. He would get more sympathy one, and he'd get a little bit more credibility back if he was willing to drop the receipts. And to me, someone has more credibility, a lot more credibility, when they drop all the evidence about something, like relating back to a lot of the other stuff, even the stuff that paints them in a bad light. And I said this in my other video, but you should always show all the evidence. When you're trying to give evidence to something, you should always show all the evidence, even if it paints you in a bad light, because then when you are telling the truth, people are more likely to believe you. When you're telling the truth and you're showing the evidence that doesn't paint you in a bad light, all the stuff that doesn't paint you in a bad light, someone's lying about you, someone's doing something, blah, 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 you're more likely to be believed. And just generally what you say is more likely to be believed, because people will know you as someone that will tell the truth even when it's bad for them. So that's something I hold to personally, and I think that he should do that. He's not doing it. And like I can kind of relate to that too, because I've had several times over the past like 2 years, especially, where like I've had people like lying about me in my personal life because I had some falling outs with some friends and stuff like that, including a friend that like tried to go around to, I cut this friend off. This friend turned out to have been doing a lot of really shady stuff, was using lies and manipulation in a kind of sexually predatory way. I cut this friend off, but because of like some situations, I couldn't fully like out him for like how he was acting, because like someone else could potentially get hurt, kind of thing. So I was waiting till the moment was right to do that, and I found out later, like because I didn't want to talk about him. I didn't want to feed into the drama in my own personal social circle. I didn't want to talk more about it. My response was basically, if someone came to me and said this person was talking shit, I would say, okay, what are they saying? I'll tell you the truth, and I'll show you my evidence of the truth. And one of the things that this person was trying to say was that he found out some shit about me and decided that he didn't want to be my friend anymore, and he cut me off as, like, he just cut me off as a friend because of that, because he was trying to make me look bad. And I had someone tell me that, and I just screenshotted the conversation where I basically told him to never talk to me again, and I was pissed off at him and blah, 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 and told him off, and sent that to them, and it immediately debunked everything that this dude was saying. And that's another wild thing that I don't get how Pirate hasn't wrapped his head around of, don't lie about things that can be one, just don't lie. But if you're gonna lie, don't lie about things that can be disproven with a fucking screenshot, dude. Don't lie about things that the evidence is so easily there to prove that you're a liar. Because the only people that are gonna end up believing you are the people that are like your sycophants, and even some of them are gonna leave you because now you're an untrustworthy person. This source of truth and information is not one. So it's just like a wild thing for him to try to do. And then he, during that conversation too, I talked about it a little bit, he keeps doing like this guilt by association thing of someone mentioning something, and because they mentioned something, that must mean they're a part of it and they participated in the swatting of him and blah, 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 and all this different stuff. It's like, you're doing a lot of guilt by association, and that's not okay. That's really bad. Like, I've had times in my personal life where like a group that I used to be a part of got rid of a player, and then we're talking about banning all of his friends from the group too, like everyone that he knew from the group, because they were friends with him. And another player they discussed banning because he was friends with people that were in a different group that they didn't like. And it's not like these were like hate groups or anything like this. This was like a social club. It was basically just we go around and play games. It was a LARP group. So it's like he's doing a lot of that too, and that just rubbed me the wrong way of, oh, they said this thing. But a lot of it, like if you watch the video and you look at the screenshots and you look at all that, a lot of it just really seems to be him trying to divert from the facts and using emotional pleas to try to get people to react in a way that he finds acceptable, even though the reaction that he wants is not merited by the things that were being shown. So now he's using like an emotional plea to say this, and it really almost seems like he's trying to exert his power a little bit. And it was just like there's just a lot of that stuff there, and there's a lot of traits of just direct narcissism that he's been like showing off more and more. And I feel stupid about it because I used to like publicly kind of defend him. Like I'd when people would ask me about stuff that he said on stream, or when stuff would come up, be like, well, no, I can understand where he's coming from. I can come, and now it's just like, no, dude, he's just a jackass. And like the more I see, the more I realize it. And that's something I say in the other video too. Is like there's a lot of like unsubstantiated things that have been said about him, a lot of stuff where people are just making these claims, and he's gone out and said, no, that's not true, that's a lie, that's a misrepresentation of the facts. And initially I was like, okay, well, yeah, people might be lying about him, people might be misrepresenting facts about him, and blah blah blah. And now it's just like it's harder to believe him, because all the stuff that has directly been able to show that he is lying and he is the one misrepresenting the facts. So now it really puts me in a mindset of like, I kind of want to believe a lot of these worst things that were said about him, because he has shown to be an untruthful person. So him defending himself doesn't really have a lot of value unless he's able to drop receipts that show that those things are not true. And I'm not going to go into too much of the WoW drama either, because that's already been said and done. And like, I already put out a video on that on the main channel of like, I don't necessarily think, I'm not like a super big WoW player. I used to be, but I was never like super into the meta, so I don't understand like a lot of the specifics tactics. I just kind of played more casually. I just played it a lot. But like from what I saw of the WoW stuff, like he was in the right for what he did in the thing. Like, okay, they said run, run, run. I'm not going to risk my hardcore character because someone's flip-flopping on what they're going to say. I understand that. But his reaction to it got more and more immature. His reaction to it got a lot more immature. I don't think a lot of the people's reaction in like OnlyFans was a little bit immature to begin with, but his just got worse and worse. And it's just like it's more of a sign of just kind of what, even if he was like, I think right in that situation, the way he reacted to it shows a little bit more about how he is as a person. And it's something to factor in. And unfortunately, the thing with, I think I've covered like all the basic things I want to talk about. Essentially, he's a hypocrite. He lies a lot. He misrepresents facts. He talks around stuff in a very specific way to like, so that he can go back later and say I wasn't lying, and kind of control the conversation and call other people out. But if you can form your own opinion. So like just. Even when he says this, it's a thing a lot of people like that do, where they say, well, oh, technically, because they're more concerned with like being right in their own head than actually being right, and giving the perception of being right than actually being right. But most people with like a functioning like brain and functioning ability for critical thinking will be able to say like, yeah, I know he's saying that, but that doesn't mean what he's saying is actually the truth. He's saying that he did these things the right way and did all this stuff the right way, but clearly he intended it, kind of thing. So like he's really just trying to keep that lowest common denominator of people that aren't going to think critically about it to continue believing him, because everyone that's going to think critically about it is going to question him on it. But yeah, I definitely think one last thing I want to bring up is just this. Again, the fixation on the money part of the Ashes of Creation stuff, which is fair. He was supposed to bring in a lot of money, but the more he talks about it, the more it seems like that is really his biggest concern is the fact that he's not going to get the money, because he references, and he put out a whole tweet on it. And apparently there's another tweet I didn't see that got deleted that was him lashing out a lot more and throwing a temper tantrum, which the dude is like 38 years old, dude. Calm down. But throwing a temper tantrum about it. And then he ended up putting out a tweet that was like, hold on, let me pop it up. He put out a tweet where he was talking about like, and I think part of it's like to protect his own reputation, because there are people saying, oh, you're just worried about the money. But I also think he was just worried about the money, of the fact that he hasn't seen any of his referral stuff, any of the percentages from his referral bonuses, in the original discourse with one of the people that Margaret, who was the communications director for Intrepid Studios, who created Ashes of Creation. When she said, if you're interested in leaving the creator partnership, the creator program, we understand. He immediately said, oh, is this just so you don't have to pay me? Which really shows where his mind is going with it, that he immediately jumped to money. And then he brought up on the stream, he brought up money, but he brought it up in a way that was like, oh, I'm sorry if you guys spent money on it. I have the money, blah, blah, blah. But then puts out a tweet. In that conversation, he talks about, oh, so I'm not going to get any money for the around 40,000 people I got to to buy this game, to get this game, because the referral program is based on a subscription model. You get 15% of ongoing subscriptions of people that you referred. But if the game's dead, he's not going to get that 15% of ongoing subscriptions because the subscriptions aren't going to happen because the game is dead. So like he talks about that. He talks about, I'm not going to get any of that money. And she clarifies, oh no, the referral program is separate. You'll still get that money. And then he just repeatedly kind of brings it up about this money that he's not getting. And yeah, you have definitely be angry about that. Like if you did a thing and you're supposed to get all this money, but it's just it's one of those things that by itself makes perfect sense, but when combined with everything else that's going on, it just seems like that was really his concern, and almost makes it feel like his concern with Ashes of Creation shutting down is in part because he likes the game, but also in part because now he's not going to get a lot of money from it. Like this was a monetization effort for him, and now he's a little bit more concerned about that because he put out, and I'll just pop it up on screen because I don't want to read the whole thing, but pops up, he'd put out a tweet that was basically complaining about that. He talked about it on his stream. He brought it up like almost unpromptedly, or like he really had a tangent to get there in the conversation he had in the leaked DMs, and it's just gross. It's just like, there's so much about the way that he acts around this stuff that's just, you can't take these things in isolation, because any one of these things in isolation you might be able to look past, but when you combine all these things, it just speaks to a lot to who he is as a person, and it's really gross. One of the things I bring up too, and I just kind of want to say it here, I bring up in the other video, but I want to say it here too, is when you look at those DMs and you look at these kind of spurious correlations that he makes between things to justify the way he's behaving about something and the way he's acting about something, like saying like someone mentioning that Kiwi Farms exists is direct correlation that they are part of Kiwi Farms and that they are part of swatting him. It's those sorts of spurious correlations that he's making, and the fact that he makes those sorts of connections a lot, to me, also just ruins a lot of his validity as an intelligent figure and as someone that should be listened to in general, and that you should really think about the things he says critically, because it was similar to the way he made those kind of correlations with Stop Killing Games and why he chose to go after Stop Killing Games and try to stop it from happening was based off of spurious correlations, and all the stuff that all the advice and all the information he was putting out was based off spurious correlations that weren't true, that was not actually found in the data, but to his mind, it's enough of a direct correlation that he's going to opine on it as a fact. He's going to say that it is just the truth. And that really, to me, challenges his credibility as a source for really anything. But like, I'm sure there's more I can say. And if like, I might end up ranting about him like the next time I stream too, who knows? Or if someone brings up kind of thing. But that's really, I'm going to leave this here. If you want to check out, the original video I did talking about some of the pirate software drama and my more direct relationships with it, I'll link that in the description. If you want to check out the other video I put out on him on my main channel, I'll link that over here. And if you want to check out my storytelling channel where I rant about stuff that happened in my life and tell stories about stuff that happened in my life, and I'm going to start reading Reddit stories too, click on the playlist over here. I really do want that channel to grow. But with that, I'm going to leave this here.